You think of like old churches, they weren't built for religion. They were built in certain geometries to create a specific frequency in a specific location. I love to do experiments with my energy. So I was once in Morocco walking down this really busy market in the brightest blue outfit. You could, and I'm tall as well. And I was walking down this street and I made myself invisible and shrunk my whole energy field. And I was getting knocked along the street. And then all of a sudden I opened myself up, and then it was like I just appeared out of thin air. Everyone, woof, like that. And I love doing little experiments with that to see the power of your energy field and how it affects other people, and how you can literally make yourself invisible in a place where you shouldn't be invisible. And you can play around with that again. It's like with your energy field doing when you're around other people and not picking up anyone's emotions. There's so much stuff you can do energetically to help protect yourself.
What are some of those things that you personally do that you found have been really effective for you?
One thing is bringing my field close. If you've got
Okay.
some sort of like sensitive feeling, you just bring it close to you. We've got, aura. It's the same reason why if you can sense someone behind you, and you can feel someone watching you. There's it's all energy, and it's your spidey senses go. But we've got a field around us, and you can expand that as big as you can expand it around the world, or you can bring it in really close. That makes you less noticeable, and it protects you. The protection. I also visualize. So some people put themselves in a bubble, but what that ends up doing, I don't know, there's the practice that you put a bubble of golden light around you, and that's protecting your energy field. What I will say is what that does is it bounces. If someone's sending you, so the evil eye is real,
Mm.
absolutely real. There's a reason why all the different traditions around the Middle East and Eastern Europe and South America actually have the evil eye, the Hamza, as the protection. So if you, where was I going? Oh yeah, so if you put the bubble around you, that if you have any negative thoughts, they ping right back at you. They'll just bounce back in. Equally, if the other people have a negative thought, it bounces back at them. Now, what you can do is put yourself in this particular crystal called indigo gabbro. I haven't got any with me at the moment, and that's a
Indigo
transmute.
Gabbro.
Oh my gosh, this crystal is.
Amazing.
I
I've
don't,
never heard of
it's,
it.
I will send a link to it just to show you what it looks. It's from Madagascar, and it is so powerful. But that's a transmuting crystal, and it doesn't need recharging. It doesn't need cleansing. You visualize that around your field, and with the intention of it transmuting. That I can go on the tube in London, and I don't pick up anything. Whereas normally I can feel it, sense when I've picked up things. I've just literally put myself in this crystalline bubble, and then off I go on my day, and I don't really need to cleanse myself that much. You can. I'm quite sensitive, so I can feel certain energies attracting or repelling.
Yeah, right. And so does this, instead of the golden ball, for example, where you're saying it's reflecting, and I've thought about this actually, but I've not gone in too deep into it, so it makes sense. And I think that's why I didn't do it so often. But this indigo gabbro is, and am I pronouncing it correctly? Yeah. Is that sort of letting in what benefits you? Is it there's an intelligence to it where it's kind of reflecting what doesn't need to be there and actually benefiting, bringing in or allowing what you can receive in the highest?
It's allowing what you receive, and it's transmuting the negative. So you can measure it with pendulum. I like because I've gone very deep with energetics, but you can measure it with a pendulum. You can get into a piece of paper, and you can put in there hate through your hands. Another one you could do the Lord's Prayer or the Gayatri mantra, and print it into the paper. You can then test with a pendulum if it's low frequency or high frequency. This is called vibrational radiesthesia. And then you can also transmute it, the lower frequency or negative, and it will transmute it into a higher frequency.
Mm. Can you say vibrational? Say that word again slowly.
Radiesthesia.
Let me write that because I want to see it for myself. Radiesthesia.
Esthesia.
That's awesome. I use a pendulum as well for various things, but I haven't gone so deep into sort of in that aspect of things. So wonder if, while we're on this topic, if someone wants to, and we're not going to go into a crazy masterclass or anything, but if someone wants to do that, and we're just going to trust that they know already, they trust their pendulum swings and how it all works.
This is different to mental radiesthesia, which is where you'll program it to go yes and no. This is literally testing the frequency. So you're not doing anything. There's no mental. I mean, you could get this pendulum. You can get a pendulum and put it on a battery. Usually, it needs to be plastic, so it's dead, or there's certain other shapes and materials. But you literally can get a battery and put your pendulum over it, and it'll start moving. It'll go clockwise for the positive part of the battery and anti-clockwise for the negative. So that's where you start from, and then you can start testing for like geopathic grids or high frequency elements. Testing for You can test for specific objects if you were also when people are doing I've forgotten the name of it. Well, they've got those rods, divination rods, and
Yes.
they use those. So it's kind of similar, but using a pendulum for that.
Could you share one specific way that somebody could use it now? So they could be like, right, after watching this, I want to go and pick something up. I want to test the frequency. And how do you figure out the numbers? Do you have a chart or anything like that? So if you could share, because this is also for me, I want to play with this later.
So you can use the pendulum. You can find your individual frequency, your wavelength. So each of us has got our own wavelength based on, and it's like a snowflake, completely unique to us. So you can program the pendulum swing, so based on the length of the string and the angle it's at, because an angle is a frequency, and you can train it to your individual frequency. So then you can so using that string length, you can work out if something is strengthening or weakening to you. So one example that I do all the time, just to show this, is we all know mobile phones have got high EMFs. So I can go into someone's frequency and then tune into the energy of the phone, and it'll start going back. Always will start going backwards. I think you'd have to be superhuman for a phone to be beneficial to you. You can so practical examples of that. Phone doesn't matter, but supplements, stacking of supplements, certain foods, having supplements at different times of the day. There's so many things you can do. And equally, you mentioned a logo on a business. So that's the health implications. I even did it for a husband and wife, and the husband was weakening to the wife. And vice versa, it was the opposite. Now I'm going to bring it sacred geometry, I'm afraid. So you can actually creating a logo, if you were to create a logo and it was sacred geometrically perfect, or it abides by certain natural shape laws, then it'll be beneficial to you. So if you had say if your logo was a spiral or a circle or like a Fibonacci spiral, then that'll be really, really beneficial to you, because that is a natural occurring shape in the earth, and that's beneficial to ourselves.
And what about the vibrational frequency? Because I also believe, it's like we could have a business name, business logo, business colors, branding colors, all of this stuff. I mean, this could be a game changer if we can figure out, okay, I want orange and purple for my probably a terrible combination. I don't know. I'm not this color guy, but this is my branding colors and this is my logo, and I think it's great. My ego is involved. I'm like, this is the best thing, and then I go and test it. And when you say going backwards, is that like counterclockwise?
Anti-clockwise, yes.
And is it kind of a universal response? Because you're saying we're not programming this thing, right?
Yes, no, it is a universal response. So on the battery, it will, unless there's something weird in your energy field, which I have seen some people with that, and some people it just goes clockwise all the time. Other people's it goes anti-clockwise. There's clearings that need to happen. But always, if you had a battery, it'll always go clockwise for the positive charge and always go for the other charge, unless you've got your wirings mixed up, and then it goes the complete opposite. But if you know, so you can test it. You can get a battery, and then if it's going one way for one and the other way for the other, that's your natural clockwise, anti-clockwise. But it's rare that it's the other way.
That's super cool. So say I'm looking at the logo, I think it's super cool, and then it starts going anti-clockwise. I'm like, maybe this isn't as good as I thought it was. And that can give you some great information. And then what about the frequency? Because then we could say, okay, it's between 200 and 400 hertz, something like that. I want it to be above 600. I want it to be above 800. You know, could we test for that? Because I know that David Hawkins does that in Power versus Force, and it's been tested in many ways.
Not in this sense because it's more subtle energies. It's
Right.
more, yeah. So it's more subtle energies. I mean, you can't measure the frequency of a shape yet, but you can measure it's more qualitative. So this is more. It's got higher frequency than this. You can test that, and this is part of biogeometry by Ibrahim Karim in Egypt. So this yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, it's more qualitative and relative rather than this is so many hertz. Obviously, electronics we can measure that easily, but shapes, colors, less. I think colors you can, but it's not as
Mhm.
easy.
So I assume that at the very least, it may even give you a sense of whether it's not the right color. You probably have to have some discernment for yourself and understand, but it might give you some information whether it's good for you, especially because intention's so powerful too. I'm coming in with the intention of, is this right for me? Is this blue right for me? And maybe it sort of shows yes or no, or
There's one thing I will say with colours. So shape, there's certain rules. So if you go to my Instagram page and you look at my highlights, I've got these designs, and they're almost like creating a vesica shape, but with different shapes. So there's overlapping shapes. So in that, you're creating a centre point, and if you the centre of a circle has got such power. So there's a reason why mosques have got domes on top. It's creating a certain frequency within a shape of a building. Circles are just that's why the vesica is used in quite a lot of church windows for Jesus and Mary. It's a powerful. It's 1 + 1 = 3. It's the first shape that's created when a baby's born. After contraception, no, conception,
conception. Conception.
conception. um, it's the cell gets divided into two, and then they overlap and start and it's the growth. It's that first part. So that shape is where the energy comes in from the spiritual plane. If
Beautiful. So people can start practicing with this with battery. That would be a great starting point because the more we build up on our beliefs and trust that this stuff works, then we can start exploring more, and they can, like I said, they can reach out to you and understand more about specifics and how to apply this in different areas of life. Health can be great for people as well, and I use a kind of swaying kind of motion sometimes for food and supplements and muscle testing for that in my own way with energy testing, and yeah, and so I learned that a few years ago around if you I don't really take many supplements, or not even very often either, but if you could take one, because the packets, right, they say take three early on in the morning before a meal, blah 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 blah, and that's such a generalized thing because you don't know what each person's like, and every single day, and for example, women and men even, I believe, have cycles, but I don't know how much science is behind that, but I know women have their cycles, right? So how does that affect the cycles? These things just give you one direction, doesn't make any sense. So sometimes I would hold something in my hand and I would sort of either feel my energy expand or I'd move forward. Whatever my yes response is, I may pick up two and it's still there. I may pick up three and it's still there. And I'm like, wow, my body can take three today. Pick up four? No, too much. And same on another day, I may then pick up one and it just says no. So you don't need that today. So first of all, you could save some money. You don't have to have it every day because your body's so wise and the energy's so wise that it can just tell you what you need in that moment. What's your experience with that as well?
I mean, this is the same energy as when you're doing mental radiesthesia in the sense that you're asking a question, your body, it's the same energy, it's just going through your hand. If you're trained properly in it, it's the same energy as doing the muscle testing. I mean, I use it all the time for decision making. Not all the time. It's not a crux, but it is fantastic for that. And as long as you're not getting out of your head and into your heart to ask the questions, otherwise you can override it straight away, even with the muscle testing, the backwards and forwards.
One of the reasons I reached out to you in the first place, because I discovered something that many people listening to this may not have even heard of, because I only heard of it maybe a few weeks ago. No, a few months ago I heard of it first, and then it was like out of my field, and then it came back, and it's just been like, came up 3, 4, 5 times the term. Nothing to do with me. Even my partner had some other readings, tarot and different things, and she was like, Astro Cartography came up again. And Astro Cartography came up in both of her readings. It came up for me. I reached out to you. And so tell us, what is astrocartography?
Astrocartography is the geographic astrology, basically. So it's based on the time, place, and location of birth and where the planets were in the sky, and the angles. So you have AC lines, which are all about the self, and that's where the planet was in rising in the east. DC, which is relationships and where it's set in the west. IC, which is home and roots, where the planet was at the lowest part of the sky. And then your midlife career, which is where the planets were at the highest point of the sky. And it's utterly fascinating. I mean, I discovered it a year ago. So I've been traveling and having highs and lows, twists and turns. And I thought, again, astrocartography. I was like, okay, I'll have a little look. And it blew my mind. Some of the places, quite a lot of the places I've been, I had a line going through. So I'll give you some examples. My happy place when I was a kid growing up was the Canary Islands. I love that place. Went regularly. I mean, we're from England, Brits abroad, but I love it, and I still do. I like recently discovered that they've got pyramids there, and it's you've got the volcanoes and the beaches and year round. So it just I love that place, and I've got my Jupiter line goes straight through it, and it's my happy place, and it's where I expand waistline as well, and it is my place to go to when I need an uplift. Equally, Bali, where I've just been, is my Saturn AC line. Yeah, so yeah, Bali's the taskmaster for me. I've just been there, and it struggles all the time. There's always ups and downs there whenever I go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have my Mars line, so my astrology is all fire, whereas you are all water.
Yes, yes.
um,
I'm fully
so
aware of.
yeah, I am all fire, and I have my Mars line goes through the UK and down into Spain. Um, I thrive on a Mars line. It's fast moving. It's like London. London to me is one of my favourite cities in the world, and I thrive in that setting. Again, I'm quite masculine energy anyway, so that is interesting. I've come back to the UK and I'm about to start some new business ideas as well. So I feel like I had the time, just had the time in Bali to generate the ideas. Now I come back to a Mars line to use this energy to be productive and bring something into light.
Getting so many ahas right now. Thank you. It's amazing. This is already amazing. We've only scratched the surface, because there's so much. I love the work of astrology and astrocartography, but there's so many aspects to it that I'm just kind of like this happy bystander, this happy passenger, just like, I love listening to people talking about this. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm just kind of absorbing the vibes and just picking up what seems relevant to me at the time. But now you're kind of like saying Saturn, Jupiter, Mars. So Mars is fire, right? So I'm sure there's many levels to this, but in a very simple, because also I want to just honor anyone watching this. Some people may be advanced, some not, but if they're not, it's like just keeping it simple of Mars, fire. So you want to be productive, get shit done, and do all that stuff. Fire is good. Is that just because you're a fire sign? Would that affect someone else if they're like me, a water sign?
It affects everyone really differently. It depends on your yeah, it depends on your natal chart. So for you, you have one. So here we go. So you have one planet in a fire sign, which is Uranus, which it goes through Costa Rica.
My God, tell me.
Um, so Mars is passionate, but it's also so you've got to think of each planet as having light and shadow, all of them. like so Mars is passionate, but it's also angry. It's fiery, and you can use that fire for good and bad. I know. So my friend, she is particularly she's she's very much. I'm very much in my masculine energy, so I really and my astrology chart confirms that. My soul's blueprint is I'm an igniter. I've got most of my planets in cardinal signs, which is all about activating. So I ignite, I activate. That's my energy. I don't finish things, but I activate people and myself. So I thrive on that passionate energy, and I need passion in my life. I try and live by that. That's why I struggle personally in more watery places, whereas you're the other side. There's certain places that you would benefit from, and everyone is completely different. Your natal chart is different. Where the planets line and the world is completely different. So you kind of need to be able to understand the two of them and link them up to be able to have a full chart reading. So if you were to Google it now, it'll say, oh, there's generic things like Mars is passionate, but it doesn't say how that links to you personally in your blueprint, because we're all extremely different. And it also depends on the houses that those planets are in. So we have 12 houses, and each one has a different theme. So the sky is cut up into 12. So the houses are 12 aspects of the self. So we go from the first house, and that is yourself. The second house is finances. Third is communication and siblings. Fourth is family and roots. So you almost think of it like your lifespan, and then the 12th house is sort of death and healing, and it goes through all these different different aspects of you. So, for example, your North Node is in the 12th house, and that's of spirituality as well. So, and it's in Gemini. So, you are meant to, your destiny, your North Node, your true North, is you're meant to be bringing spirituality and grounding it into this. So, balance it. So, with Gemini, it's the opposites. So, you're bringing spirituality into this lifetime.
Okay, I have a question. How may that connect with that my mum and dad are both Geminis? And well, my sister is as well. She was born on the same day as my mum, which is probably a whole nother conversation. But I found that interesting. Now I've got more into sort of astrology and just looking into. I'm like, okay, so there must be something interesting that my mum and dad are both Geminis, air, right? And so, is there anything you can tell me about that, and anyone else that may have a similar situation?
I don't think because I've read other people's, and it's not everyone's got that, but they say that your North Node is where you're meant to be moving to. You're meant to be embodying more air, more um yeah,
So I should be embodying more air. That's going to be good for me, right?
yeah. So it's almost as in your development and your soul's growth. So it's almost as if they are teachers for you, or role models.
Well, that's what I was thinking, right? And you were saying something about grounding. If I understand it correctly, at least from one curious perspective, is if that's part of my purpose is to be maybe grounding spirituality in this three-dimensional earth. Is that kind of a
Yeah,
very simplistic way to put it? That
yeah.
makes so much sense. Makes so much sense. And my parents being both Gemini, bringing me in, and all of the challenges that they've brought me, bless them, like they've been amazing, and I'm so appreciative of my life and all the challenges, all the greatness. It's all perfect. That's why this is called All of It, because I'm embracing all of it, and it's amazing. And that makes a lot of sense to be grounding all of this stuff that maybe pulled me out of the purpose, which is the classic hero's journey of people as they're born. You're kind of like, we're gonna throw you away from where your purpose is, so you have to come back and find it, and that's part of the experience of being human.
Oh yeah, and also you have the sun conjunct on your DC line, which means that relationships are really important in your life, and you have it's a life lesson of balancing independence and codependence. Is a struggle, and also a theme and a beautiful thing. You'll find collaborators. It's amazing that you're doing a podcast, because you thrive off that one-to-one, creating that vesica, the third energy that between two people. Um, but you also have Chiron in your 11th house, which means you have healing over group communication and being in a group and having self worth within a group. And I don't know if that resonates at all.
Wow. Okay. So that, yeah, it absolutely resonates. And yeah, I think that's just a whole nother journey, right? There's no good or bad in it. There's challenges and you overcome those challenges and then you embody these things. And I think I've gone through many of these lessons especially in the last 6 years or so. And I think there's new challenges that are coming up that are just present now. Or like there's a lot of stuff from before that I feel like I've overcome, and that's been fundamental and instrumental to my growth and happiness and peace. And I feel that there's more. There's more. There's a new sense of feeling self-worth in a new community. It's like I've found there's such a beautiful community around here. Amazing people, really inspiring. They got fire. They're so wise, amazing to talk to. And sometimes because I've stepped out of one environment into this one, and in general, when I'm in the community, absolutely great. But as me being this kind of hermit mode, it takes a bit of energy for me to actually just go out and step in and first of all put myself in that space. Once I'm in that space, I'm kind of all right, in general. But there are some challenges there, and I think that makes a lot of sense that's part of this journey.
Where are you right now?
So I'm in the mountains of Costa Rica, near
Okay.
Chiripo, and yeah, it's pretty amazing, intense energy up here as well.
So I just want to talk. We know we were talking earlier about culture and the UK and the energy of the UK. So there's one thing. This is to do with geometry, but there's one thing that I've. So I'm in my hometown of Harrogate. There is a war memorial obelisk in the centre, and if you look down at the town from above, it looks like a battery pack. If you look at London as well from above, like, apart from the pieces that have been bombed, you can see how the streets used to be. I mean, if you go around Buckingham Palace, they haven't really built it. That those buildings were all created with certain geometries and certain locations to create an energy field. That's England's got, so and we've obviously got the Druids. We've got all of the ley lines going through. I mean, the whole world's got ley lines. We've got ley lines going through. We've got stone circles. There is so much magic and energy in the UK, and it utterly fascinates me. Every time I come back, I can feel like London is just so intense, especially
Hmm.
if you go to the Square Mile as well, because that's untouched too. That's got a lot of energy. So that's the area of London that's not London. It's like the Vatican of the UK in London.
Right. Okay. Oh, the mysteries. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to going back to England again, and well, UK in general, the whole area, because I'd love to do a bit more of a deliberate trip around. Because the more I've understood some ley lines, I see there's one that goes from, say, the east, more southeast ish, and it kind of goes across the west in some way, where through Glastonbury and all of that stuff. But I heard of Glastonbury and all these places like that. But I just thought these little pockets when I was looking at these. I think it was a show on Gaia or something, and it was saying actually there's some lines and they go all the way through. And it's like, wow, so there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. A lot of people from the UK, we take it for granted. I mean, I certainly did growing up. You take these things for granted, but now I've stepped out of it. I'm like, actually, there's so much beauty in the UK, and it's actually very powerful. I'm wondering how it might be instrumental to this new step of awakening.
I mean, now on the solstice events, there's so many people that go down to Glastonbury or Stonehenge. There's even the stone circles in Yorkshire as well, and then there's so much in Scotland and Ireland. Is woof. Do you know what they're doing in Dublin? They're actually knocking down perfectly good buildings and just building these high-rise things, just to mess with the energy because it's so strong there. Because
In
if
Dublin.
you think,
In Dublin.
yeah, if you think of like old churches, they weren't built for religion. They were built in certain geometries to create a specific frequency in a specific location. So most old churches, if you think of Salisbury Cathedral, it's on a ley line. So I'm going to call it a temple. Like any temple, even these big country houses as well, they are on ley lines, and and in specific geometries, if you have a look at them, they've got dome roofs. They're in a cross. They're in. They've got, the windows are certain shapes. The glass windows got different certain patterns and certain shapes. Old churches don't have. I mean, new churches don't have this, or new mosques. And they're built in a certain geometry to amplify the energy of the ley line. That's why there's this overwhelming feeling when you go into these spaces. That you do feel peaceful in the church.
I never knew. So a lot of these places are on ley lines, so they knew something.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much information that's been lost. If you, I mean, even the country. I can't remember the name of the guy. So the country mansions, they weren't built with plumbing. They're not. They weren't somewhere for people to live. They were temples, and the gardens were all geometrically symmetrical. And there was a guy, I can't remember. It was like the 1930s, 1940s, who basically put out a thing that they had to change all the geometry because it was too powerful. So if you look, all these places like Hyde Park, they've just put these. You've got these weird. They've all got exactly the same landscaping, like sort of kind of hills, odd new trees that they've just put around. They're not old trees.
To
You notice.
distort,
Pardon?
to distort the
It's
energy.
distort, yeah, yeah. They've just literally put mounds with stuff over. It's so interesting. I'll find you the name, but yeah, is a guy. Every single country or state have got exactly the same landscaping, and if you notice it, you can't unnotice it.
When you were talking about astrocartography before, you really piqued my curiosity, and you mentioned Saturn and Jupiter and Mars. What is Saturn generally? If someone looked at their Saturn line and going through a certain country, would that be beneficial to them, or how would that affect their energies?
What I would say is you can get a free chart done. So you go to astro.com and go to locational astrology. Now, they do have, if you click on the lines, they do have an explanation, but it's generic. It's not linked to your specific natal chart. So anything that I'm talking about with regards to this genericization, is that a word?
Yeah.
That you can go on there and that you can have a look at the general themes, but it doesn't link to your specific house that the planet's in, or the sign. So, but in general, Saturn is the teacher. You get, I'm going to be blunt, smacked around the face in these places. There's
Right.
challenges. Your lessons come up. There's a
Hmm.
reason. Again, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the teacher. And again, you can't. It just. I think it speeds up natural lessons that you get in your life anyway. I'll give you an example. It's not really to do with locational stuff, but this past couple of years, I picked up a parasite in Egypt, and I struggled with it. It took a year to get rid of, and it went. I had to learn herbalism. I ended up learning detox protocols. I've learned. I went to Mexico with my friend who's a detox specialist and ended up learning all of this stuff from her. And then I went to India and ended up learning about herbalism and teaching herbalism at retreats. As part of this year. Not on purpose. It was one of those things that happened. And then I and then I was and then it stopped. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I looked at my astrology and I had Saturn going through my sixth house of health. And I was like, oh, okay. And literally, as soon as it went through, that all stopped. And my eating got out of hand. My routine completely lost. I stopped working out. I stopped looking after myself. And it was the whole time Saturn was going through the house of health. And then as soon as it went out, it just everything stopped, and I'm just back to being me again. I was like, that was a strange year.
Wow. And when was that? Did you say just
uh,
last
yeah,
through?
last year. So no, it started in November 2022 and
Right.
kind of finished midway this year. Yeah, it's a year and a half.
Going through those challenges, it's great to be able to see these things. It may not have been so easy in the moment, but when you have that, and rather than just being like, oh, I've got this parasite and everything just sucks and blah blah blah, but you actually realize that actually led me to learning all these skills, and whether you know how that's going to contribute even more in the future, who knows? But it's actually added to your toolkit of what you needed to actually contribute to the greater good. So that's pretty cool. So Saturn is, remind us again what Saturn is, the teacher.
The teacher, yeah. And actually going back to that, so my North Node, so my destiny, is in the sixth house of health. So it's almost like I had to go through Saturn had to teach me all of this. And you're right, it is collecting. I think all my travels this year have been collecting things in my toolkit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I did that more in the last, say, 10 years ago, for about 5 or 6 years, something like that. I felt like that was a very condensed time of me just like learning all these different aspects. And then all of a sudden, just like that, I felt like I don't have any desire to learn anything new right now. I feel like that part of the journey is done. So that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's like the energy just switches on, switches off. And to be able to flow with that is really powerful for us. Otherwise, we can get stuck in a routine, and you watch these adverts and things like that, and people are saying, right, you need a routine. You need to wake up, and then you need to you meditate, and then you need to work out, and then you need to journal, and you need to do this. Like, that's great, that's awesome, and I've done that many, many times, and I have a routine. But you have to be open to letting that routine shift and change as you change, and certain things like these cycles. Because if there's times where you just don't want to work out, there may be some aspect of, actually, it's not, you don't need to do that right now. That's okay. Sometimes you have to realize whether it's just your limitations and you're stopping.
Mhm.
Maybe you need to push through that. This is where we need to have this discernment of what's right and wrong. But sometimes I've had that experience too. I'm like, look, I'm perfectly fine and happy, and I'm really in flow. I think that's also a key, right? When you're in flow, do you need to add all of this stuff that you've normally got in your routine, or would that actually knock you out of flow in this moment? Maybe it's only for a week, maybe only for a month, but it's really good, I found, for myself to actually, yeah, have a routine, but that routine changes based on what I'm going through.
I
What's your
mean,
routine?
I mean, traveling, it changes a lot. I completely, no, I completely lost it. But I do my daily routine. I mean, I feel safe in a routine. I'm quite like, I'm a pattern thinker. I love a pattern. So give me a routine. It's a pattern. But I get up, meditate, uh, journal, do some exercise. I mean, I used to be gym bunny. I was training for the Olympics at one point. I've got the, and having 2 years of not training has just been wild. I've started doing Pilates at the moment. That's what's suiting me right this time. I'm really listening to my body right now. Um, and then I try and get. I mean, in England now it's pitch black in the morning, so then I try and get out for the morning sun and do a walk. Um, and then I kind of the rest of the day I let it flow. Depending, if I've got a load of inspiration, I want to do some work. Boom, I'll let that go. But that the morning's solid, and I'm a morning person, so I tend to have an early night, and the rest, whatever happens in between, is kind of allows that. I used to push myself to, you've got to do this much work at this time, and I've realised my brain doesn't work like that. There's moments where I have these flurries of inspiration. I can sit down for 10 hours and just bash a load of work out, or you can't make me physically do anything with my brain, so I just leave it.
Jupiter, so Saturn teacher, Jupiter is, generally speaking, what would
So
that
Jupiter is luck and expansion. Again, we think about the light and the shadow side of each planet. So it could be too much expansion, too much overwhelm, and it could also be. It's generally considered a good planet, a good a planet of joy and abundance. But also, again, it depends on
okay?
where it is in your chart.
Yes, of
Uh,
course. Yeah.
yes, Jupiter's everyone's favorite planet. I think
Mm.
I quite like Saturn in the sense that, I mean, I love Mars for the passion and fire and aggravation, but yeah, Jupiter is, and Saturn for the lessons, because I am a bit of a masochist and I just want to expand in a different way. And yeah, Jupiter is a place for me to go for breaks.
Okay, really cool. That's good. It's interesting being with you and other fire people. I think being a water sign, and so heavily a water sign. I think there's like
Yeah.
11 or something in my stuff. Being around fire people, I really enjoy spending time with fire people. It's like generally speaking, I have a great connection, and there's a really good vibe, and I think that's probably why, because it really amplifies where I lack, and
Mm.
being in that energy and space, it's almost like it it makes me feel more joyful, more alive, and just more playful. Just more playful, and like I don't give a shit so much, and let's just lose the inhibitions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, you could see that we'll say go to the light and shadow of the fire, like ignites, it brings passion, it activates, but the downside is it can burn out. So, I mean, I've got a real problem. I can just go, 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 and then all of a sudden, like, boom, it stops.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I notice this pattern a lot. So, I said, I love looking at patterns. I see patterns in everything. And this is how I got into astrology. I was backward, sort of reverse engineering my life and trying to work out why did certain things happen, or is it just out of just pure and intellectual interest of saying, is there patterns here? Is astrology real? Can I believe in it? Do I believe in it? And I noticed my biggest pattern was I had a operation. So basically, I got kicked in the spine, had an operation when I was 20, and uh, no, 22, sorry. I put an end to a water polo career. I couldn't walk for a month afterwards. I was in complete spasm. I've got silicone in one of my discs, which I would never get done now. I was one of the youngest people to have this operation. Um, it, so that after that, I spent 10 years, 8 years, thousands and thousands of pounds on physio, osteo, chiropractor, and nothing worked until I met this man called Steve Palmer, who is or I like to call him Magic Hands, but he hates me calling him that, who is an osteopath down in the south of England.
Hmm.
Um, and he could fix my back like that every time it went into spasm. So I was like, okay, and he's in Horsham, and for some reason I ended up there. The universe put me there because I was on a
Hmm.
job, a contract, and I was no work. I was just sat in the office all day, bored as hell, doing no work. And he he genuinely the reason that I had to meet this man. So anyway, he fixed my back a load of times, and then I asked him, "Why are you the only person in the world that can, or in the UK that can fix me?" And he said, "Oh, I'm not just doing manual therapy." I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm doing energy healing." And I was like, "Oh, okay, what's that?" And that's what led me on this journey for looking at Reiki. I started with Reiki, like this is the gateway to energy healing. And then I ended up learning, I got initiated in Balinese energy healing, and then uh, studied biogeometry, sacred geometry, the radiesthesia. But going back to the astrology, I went and looked back at like all the times that I had the pattern, like why did my back go into spasm when it did? And it was always when I was burning out, and it was like my body's way of getting me to stop. So as soon as I recognized that pattern, I stopped doing it, and then lo and behold, I've not had any, touch wood, any back issues for the past 4 years.
Amazing. Oh, it's so good to get that awareness and listen to it.
Exactly.
That's the key.
Um, and this is sort of one of my biggest points now that you could go see all the healers and get healed, but unless you recognize that pattern and correct it, it's going to keep coming up.
Hmm.
In various forms, and maybe it's not just injuries, but it could be specific people or types of people, situations. The universe will keep slapping you around with that lesson, and until you learn the pattern and sort of, I think of coding and learn to take that little like defrag and take that little bit of code out of the code and get it all working and optimized, then you're
Hmm.
going to keep getting the same issues, the repeated recurring injuries, the recurring X that's exactly the same as the previous one with just a different
Yeah.
avatar.
Yeah, exactly. I love how you just gave a nice reference to all the techies out there, all the people that are into coding. They're gonna get this they're gonna get this big aha of like, oh yeah, now I understand it. Yeah, this is great.
Just think of the matrix. You're going into the source code, your source code, and I do believe that astrology. Sorry, I'm a coder, so I do believe like astrology. I look at the world in that very specific way. Everything's an energetic blueprint, and astrology is our soul's blueprint, and we I mean, we've got an element of free will and we make decisions and stuff, but I always think there's like a kind of destiny that we're set to do. And you can make decisions, yes or no, but I think you always end up back on the path. You just could end up going sort of round, do a twirl, and then come back.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and
I feel.
it shows your natural personality. You know, you align with being watery. I align with being fiery. And again, that there could be karmic elements to that. You know, I need to learn to be a bit more water, and be a bit more emotionally
Yeah,
intuitive, which is something that I intentionally work on and have presence with. But and equally with you, it's to have that little spark and get that fire and get going and woof.
You was talking about something about the chart earlier, and I don't want to go into just like me personally, but see if we can connect it with in a generally speaking way to support other people that may be listening as well. But you were saying there was something interesting about Costa Rica and Uranus on my
This is
chart. You just
this is
read my
specific.
chart.
Yep. I can't remember specifically which line. If it's an A, I think it might be AC line. It's
I think
a
you
lot of personal transformation. A lot of personal transformation. So
know
Uranus
shit.
is comes. Yeah. Uranus comes and just it's like sudden change,
Hmm.
and shakes everything up.
Hmm.
So I don't. Have you got a story for this?
I mean, the whole year. How long have you got?
I mean,
But let's
you've been there for a
see.
year. That's intense.
1 year, yeah, almost to the day. Like in with week, give or take. Give or take a few days. It's been 1 year, and it's been very intense. So Uranus is again. Let's just put it in a sense of like general terms.
The big change,
Big change.
or the transformer. Extremes. The extremes. He's the transformer.
Right. Okay. So there's no sign of it being like it's the wrong place or this, that, and the other, but it's Transformer. And do you think if I just stayed here for forever, it would just be like I'd just be constantly like in the washing machine, or you think like it? Oh no. Okay,
I
so
think
I need to travel more. I need to go out, find a spot, come back, find a spot. Okay, so this is great information. This is why anyone listening, listen, go and check out Astro Cartography and book a session with Ashley, because this information is a game changer. What you've just shared with me, I'm telling you, is a game changer because it's like, what you just told me is nothing new in the sense of it's very transformative. I'm like, yeah, no shit. But it's like, but knowing that that is because there's a line going through Costa Rica and of all the countries in the world, I mean, what are the odds? I didn't know this. So it's going through, it's very transformational, it's exactly what I'm experiencing. And I've had this sense of, okay, maybe I need to just drop out, go to somewhere else just for a month, 6 weeks, whatever it might be. Because I went to Mexico recently, made all the difference to me. I went there, came back, felt refreshed, and it starts bubbling up again like a pot. So I feel that going away, that helps me to create a pattern in my life to create that space, because transformation is inevitable, but this is going to enhance it. So that's Uranus and me in Costa Rica. Wow, fascinating. Yeah, that's just already amazing information.
so. I had a client the other day, and I just said, "You should relocate to Mauritius." And then she just, "Are you joking? I was actually considering." She used to live there, and I was considering moving back. So now she's going to move back there, and she also her chart suggested that her career should be or involves a lot of communication, and she's doing that now.
Right.
Teaching, like communication teaching, um, running yoga retreats and stuff like that. So she's actually going to do a test. So we're going to all the locations around the world where her communication was amplified by the energies of having that particular line through it. She's going to do Instagram ads too, and we're going to test to see how they work versus the non-communication locations.
That's such a cool idea. So tell me, is it Instagram ads? So you're just going to see how they perform? Is that right?
Yeah, so specific cities that where specific lines go through, and then we'll do it versus other cities where they don't. I mean, I know you've obviously got different cultures, different incomes, all the other stuff of people trying to go to retreats or do trainings, but I think you could try and do some sort of fair test. There's other elements at play. I'm completely aware of that. I'm not an idiot, but it would just be interesting to see versus maybe her previous ad campaigns and to do a comparison. I don't know how statistically significant it will be, but it will be interesting to see.
Yeah. Wow, that's such a fun experiment. Yeah,
I know.
love that. Wow. So transformation Uranus for me. Okay, so I need to go. I'm going to Guatemala on Christmas Day. I'm going over the New Year. And
If I
there's
remember correctly, I think that has the same, and I think that line still affects
I
bottom half.
imagine it's probably got a similar ending. I'm prepared. It's going to be a highly transformational thing. You know, there's going to be some ceremonies going on, um, and yeah, so I expect that to be the case, and
If I
I'm
remember
prepared.
correctly, so if I remember correctly, your birthplace, you've got the sun going very close to your birthplace in Peterborough. Now, they say that what lines go through your birthplace carries with you what energy, that energy. So your place to escape to is the sun. Now, I do believe that you have. Hang on, let me just pull it up.
Be amazing. What's the happy place? What's the happy place planet? That's the one I want to know.
It depends on your chart.
Dear.
So your happy places are by the sun because you have the very sun influence in your
Hmm.
in your. I believe if you were to go escape to sort of the north of Colombia and the islands that are directly above that, that's a place that you could escape to if you're around sort of Central America. I'll
I,
let you know afterwards.
I have actually been to the north of Colombia, yeah, and
Like
that was a pretty amazing time. Yeah,
Cartagena area.
yeah,
Cartagena.
Cartagena and Santa Marta,
Yeah.
and just below that, and then I did the Lost City trek. It's like a 4 day trek, and yeah, it was a very meaningful moment in life, and I had a mushroom ceremony there, and I felt that was a big initiation. Like my experience in that was almost like nature through the mushrooms, through the spirit. The whole thing was almost like welcome to this rainforest almost, because I've all my life I've wanted to come to South America, and the first time was 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. My whole life. I'm 40, so it's taken me a while to get there, and I've always known that there was a reason for me always having this there pulling me, but not actually going there just yet. And I think it's also fire. I think there's an aspect of that fire because it's a very fire based aspect of the South Americas, right? And then when I had this experience, yeah, the whole thing was almost like, well, it was like surgery, like energetic surgery. It was beautiful, but the whole thing was almost like an initiation, like a welcoming, like a thing all just for me. Like, come on in, you're welcome to this place now. And then guess what? And then I find myself in Costa Rica, and I know it's not South America, but it's still, generally speaking, in that space. And I wonder, it's like, okay, this makes a lot of sense connecting those dots, that I had that initiation, and now I'm kind of back into this place. Would I would it have just spit me out if I had not had that initiation? So yeah, it's interesting. That was all in the north of Colombia too.
I also think this. You're extremely intuitive, and I do believe that there's this path that you get passed through. Like I said earlier, when I had my Saturn, and then I'm gone to a Mars place. There's a reason for the flow, and where going from each place to place, and the lessons that you have to collect at each one, or the energies that you collect at each one.
You mentioned something about travel, and travel to me has been instrumental to my growth. And you specifically touched on something that I've been pondering for a while. My first experience that I really had the real understanding, at least first level of understanding of why travel is important. Because I used to travel around Europe a lot. I've been to America when I was young, but the first time I traveled for a much longer distance was Japan. As soon
Mm-hmm.
as I got off that plane, I felt like home, first of all, and that was already kind of powerful for me. So as soon as I got off the plane, the doors open, I went out, and I felt like this big cloak of energy had been put around me. It's like this beautiful cloak. This energy was just soft, safe, powerful, blissful. And I was like, wow, I love it already. And I haven't even gotten down the bottom of the stairs yet. Walked through town. Anyway, this trip was one of my favorite places. Japan's one of my favorite places, actually. So that's definitely, I know if that's a happy place, whether or not that's on a map or not. I don't need the astrocartography to know that that's a happy place of mine. But what that taught me was that's it. When you go traveling to all these different countries and cultures, you're like plugging your USB stick in to a new frequency that you wouldn't get otherwise. And that frequency is now part of your system, your coding, and that just amplifies, almost like Power Rangers comes to mind. I don't know, you know how all the Power Rangers come together and they make the big monster, and then they're like super powerful. It's almost like each color and each country adds to an extra part of you, an extra part of our remembering, and that vibration, it just gives more life to us, more understanding, more compassion as well, so we don't get so blinkered in our small perspectives on life. I'd love to hear your perspective on travel and how those energies affect you or other people. How do you see that?
One of my drivers of travelling this past couple of years was sacred sites. I love going to the old temples. I love feeling the energy of the places. In Peru, Sacsayhuaman and Cusco, oh my gosh, that place. Whereas Machu Picchu didn't do anything for me. Absolute dead energy to me. Sacsayhuaman was powerful. Certain temples in Egypt that I've gone into, and the whole body is shaking. I know, and I even went to, I can't remember the name of the temple, Karnak Temple, and that one had such a profound impact on me. There's this particular statue of Sekhmet, and that thing, I dream about it. You went into that room and it was like it was alive. And I mean, that's concentrated energy in a granite stone of a certain particular shape and a particular location. So obviously that's going to do a lot more amplified energy. But there obviously are different frequencies at all these different places. You know, if you step into a graveyard, no matter where you are in the world, you get the heebie-jeebies. There's a reason for that. And so yeah, my travels were kind of oh my gosh, Mexico. I can't, near the pyramids in Mexico, I find it so intense, and Cairo as well. I think there's
So you went to Mexico?
yeah,
And that
I
was,
was
what
in.
was that, too intense, you feel, for you at the time at least?
Do you know what? It's not necessarily the pyramids. It's around the pyramids, and Cairo as well, and even in Avebury. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna. No, I think there's something about these power portals that have got so much energy that the people living just outside them are just really intense and a bit crazy. Like I felt it, not crazy, not crazy, but everything's amplified. They're just like, it's like that Cairo is extreme, and I think there's something to do with the energy of the pyramid outside the pyramid, because they have to move geopathic lines for the pyramids to be built. They can do changing of energy grids basically. So you've got ley lines and geopathic lines, but they can change the energy grids. And I think like outside around those temples, it's just crazy. It's crazy.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, and I felt it a lot in Mexico. Peru, not so much. I mean, Cusco is just, oh, my heart.
yeah.
I ended up, my first day, I hadn't acclimatized to the altitude. It was a ridiculous time in the morning, and I was like, right. So I walked up there from Cusco. The altitude, walking so slowly, puffing and panting, and then there was no one there, not even the staff. And then I went and sat. They've got on top. There's this. You're not supposed to go in there, so sorry. And then there's this circle. So I just went and sat in the center of the circle and just meditated, and it was. I could just feel everything. It was amazing. It was so amazing. I wish I
Mm,
had Watuma to do that, but that would have been
yeah.
intense.
How did that land? When I feel like when I went plugged into Japan and like feel like, oh wow, I've got that vibration now. It's like I've got a download of that frequency. And then I went to Vietnam and I remembered, oh, there's a different vibe there. It's like different colors, different frequencies, different
Mm.
vibes, and Cusco was different, and Malaysia was different, and Bali was different, and it's like, wow, it's so good, because as you pull on all of them, or as you connect to all of them, somehow you have a bigger understanding and the
Mhm.
importance of culture and the difference. And it makes astrocartography make more sense to me too, because of the way of locations, right? 'Cause when I went to Bali, you were talking about Bali, maybe we can talk about that, because Bali was intense, like so intense. And, and it is for a lot of people. I'm sure some people will go and it's like nothing, but for some people, it's like it's a tumble dryer. You go in there, it's like slap, slap, slap. You're all over the place. So be prepared. I mean, there's this running joke of like, if you go as a couple, prepare to leave separated, or you know, like, because it's going to be such a challenge. So just be prepared, because it's, for me, it was very much sacral chakra um, area of transformation, and it was, yeah, it was a big one. There was a lot of dark energy there as well, and that was a beautiful teacher for me. It taught me to love unconditionally rather than be afraid. I'm like, these dark energies, get rid, try and clear. And then all of a sudden I had this aha moment of like, if I am all of it, I got to love all of it. So I started to just love this darkness and surrender to it rather than try and clear it and get rid of it. And that was a huge transformational moment for me, to just be
Mm.
like, embrace the dark, embrace the light, embrace the heavy, because it felt demonic, and you see all the statues and stuff around there. It's like it's there. I'm sure it's there for a reason. Tell me about your experience.
The healers there, as I said, I'm fascinated with alternative healing. So I ended up studying this American woman, and she takes groups of people there so she teaches you. I spent ages learning Sanskrit chants, although pronounced in Balinese. So it's not Shiva, it's Shiva.
Okay.
So um, and they're basically conjuring up energies to do. I mean, they're doing it for a greater good because they're doing healing, but they throw black magic at each other all the time. So I've got two stories of that. So one of the healers, I was there for this woman who had this big leg, and she'd had it for years. One big leg and the other one wasn't. And this guy, he just got a cigarette, blew just a normal packet of cigarettes, and blew the cigarette on her leg, and these little shards of crystal came out of her leg. And I didn't have any photos of it, so you have to take my word for it. But I'm the most logical person. I used to be an actuary. I've got a very logical, scientific brain. I'm very
Mhm.
so. As soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, there's other forces in this world that not many people know about or believe, or there's dark forces. You can't just think it's all love and light. It's not. And to completely dismiss the dark, I think you're completely unbalanced as a person. I mean, this talks me a little bit of New Age spirituality. But that's another conversation. Um, and then the second one was we went to Nusa Penida. Now, Nusa Penida is where there's one god that's locked up there. You're not even allowed to look at him. And then they have a silent day, and this god is allowed to run rapid and do his evil things. So that's their new year, this silent day. And he apparently, this god or man deity, he killed loads of people. He's very demonic energy. So anyway, we go to this island, and he's also the god of healing. So no, he's not Hindu. He's a Balinese god. Um, so we went to these cave temples. So you go through, and there's like 5 Hindu temples, and then the last one is a Buddhist temple. And you go in the Buddhist one, and there's a priest, and he almost does a blessing. So he put his fingers on my shoulder, and only the video, he's only touching me, and he has to hold me up because I'm getting pushed back so much. He was so powerful. So then the group, we all got this blessing or activation or whatever it was. Then the Balinese that were helping us, because we needed to do pujas, and you have to do these very complicated, intricate prayers with certain flowers in each of the 5 other temples. One of them was helping us. She goes up, and then all of a sudden it was like The Exorcist, and it was like she was doing the hacker, falling on the floor, doing all of this with her hands. All the Balinese were just propping her up, pushing her to this priest, and she was ha 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 ha. All it was, we were, my friends and I were terrified. So he did his thing, pushed her, and then she just all of a sudden went bang on the floor, and they carried her out. So all these white people were just absolutely shell shocked, and went outside, and this woman was just sat there eating a peanut butter and jam sandwich. I was like, oh, perfectly normal. So I asked one of the people. She couldn't speak English, so I asked one of the translator. Said, "Is she okay? What happened?" And he said, "Oh yeah, this happens to her all the time. It's black magic." And I said, "What do you mean it's black magic?" And he said, "Oh, her sister-in-law sends curses to her in and cakes." And I was like, "Why does she stop?" And it's happened 3 times now. I said, "Why does she stop taking gifts from this woman?"
And
But this is
eating.
just normal. Yeah, but I know, exactly. But this is normal. They're kind of, yeah, they've got the Hinduism, but the bit that they had before, that it's working with nature, it's working with elementals, it's working with energies to manipulate energies for their means. And obviously, you can use those forces for good, and you can use them for bad.
Yeah. Wow, what an experience. Yeah, Bali's intense, and that's a valuable experience. Black magic is something that's actually been on my mind a little bit, and just wondering about, is there a specific blueprint or sort of feeling or sensation or sign that someone could just be aware that there is some black magic around in their experience, and maybe that, or they can protect themselves from? Is there anything you know about that?
I mean, you can definitely sense it. I've had it before where I had a situation in India and ended up in Sri Lanka, and I just couldn't sleep for days. And a friend of mine just said, "Oh gosh, you've got chains." She can see things, but you've got these chains wrapped all around your body. So she did her thing to remove this entity energy that was a subtle energy that was around me. Able to sleep straight away after that, and I was like, and I was feeling anxious, which isn't. I'm not an anxious person. I was like, oh, what is this? And obviously the lack of sleep didn't help. Again, I'm extremely rational. I mean, I know this, but there's no. I don't think there's any such thing as coincidence in this world. It's just a pattern that we haven't
Mm.
felt yet. Then when I went back to India, the person that I was working with was covered in a rash all over his face, and he had that the whole time I was there. And he's from a quite powerful, like sort of Pakistani family that used of healers. So whether he did it intentionally or not, I don't think he did. But I think he had this. He's got some sort of elevated energy that his jealousy or his not wanting me to leave to go to Sri Lanka because I was working for him caused this energetic imprint and that connection between us. So I mean, other things you can pick up entities in bars and nightclubs. Those when you're around lower density, you can pick them up. I picked one up outside the Dalai Lama temple in Dharamshala.
Really, you wouldn't expect that, would you, when you think about it?
But if you think they're attracted to the light, and then if you think when I said that they know how to temple builders know how to well, old temple builders knew how to manipulate the energy grids. So there was almost like a concentration, it's like a protection around the temple. So of course there's going to be lower density frequencies around that.
There's a reason these things come up in our awareness. All the stuff I've been listening to, podcasts, all the like clearings and things that have come up for me in the last, especially this year. So I guess this whole transformation thing. Black magic, for the first time in my life, has just been kind of a present theme. And you can't ignore that when it's just like you see it or you feel it and you sense it. And I started to recognize, as you said, yeah, you can feel it. I'm starting to recognize these nuances between these different labels that we give these energies, for good or bad, I don't know. But, like entities was a big thing that I was sort of figuring out and going through in Bali around that time, not necessarily just because of Bali, but around that time I became more aware of it then. This black magic thing, it came about more this year and I started to become aware of it. Sometimes I could feel like someone's just clamped something on my brain, or something's clamped on a part of my body, and it's almost like a different sensation. And so it's actually good. Now, I don't want to scare people or anything like that, and I don't want to just like project this thing out there that people now like get this belief of, oh my god, I must have black magic. Please don't, just. But it's for me there was this awareness of, if something feels like it's taking me off my center alignment and just feeling in flow and feeling good and feeling clear, being able to communicate, talk, think, and sometimes I'm not. I'm like, I'm able to now find out where it comes from and either let go of it or figure out why that happened. And like you said, that's why I love what you share, because it makes a lot of sense. I've been able to start figuring that out. You go back to that guy who's got a rash and you clear this thing. It's like, I see that too. Whenever I shift something or clear something, I can see the implications of how that's been. And maybe it's because of jealousy, attachment, all of these kinds of things. Maybe it's from another life. Maybe it's from who knows where. Maybe it's coming up now to be cleared and it wasn't relevant until this point. So there's an infinite kind of amount of different complexities around this. But on a very person to person level, we just don't realize how powerful people are. And I think that's an important thing for us to figure out. We are all very powerful. Now, if we can just figure out how powerful we are so that we can actually learn to control our impulses, because we may unconsciously just be just doing stuff that's actually, I don't want to say hurting other people, but like causing difficulties for other people. And because we're all the same, it's like actually hurting you. So it's more importantly, it's like those unconscious actions based with the unruly power. Reminds me of X-Men and the guy. I mean, I'm obsessed with superhero movies, but I've forgotten his name. Cyclops. And in one of the movies, it's like his eyes are open and he's got no control over his power. And it's just going everywhere, it's chopping trees down and like nearly killing people, you know. And so he has to have these glasses and focus his powers to be able to control that. And then, you know, so it kind of reminds me of that.
Oh, well, if you think everyone wants superpowers, everyone wants to be the superhero, but they don't want to do the pre-work. You need to be able to calm your mind. You need to be able to control your emotions because, as you said, you're unintentionally jealousy, anger, frustration, all of that, all of the good stuff. You're projecting that, and it in a thought form, in a whatever form. It's and sometimes it can be completely unintentional, but because you're so not conscious or not present with your emotions, or you just complete control. There's no that you can't just go and try and get magic powers. You can't start working with frequency and energy because your energy will rise, and then it just causes chaos. But that's the boring stuff. It's being able to control this and be completely present and all of that stuff. This is my problem with all the energy healing and all of this, like Reiki. You just go off, and then they just you don't get taught any of that. You just get taught you get initiated, and then off you go. You don't get taught how to clear yourself. They say that you're channeling energy, so your energy doesn't affect it. Bollocks. So with Reiki, that's it's completely ignored. The only pranic healing is amazing. Master Cho, he teaches a lot of calming the mind and actually being about the healer being completely present. I've had a really difficult year this year, so I was not touching anyone or going near anyone or anything like that because I was like, I had stinky energy around me. Whether it was mine or other people's, I was just going through a rough patch, but I just wouldn't go near that. And I know I'm quite powerful, so it was just not. I had to go through the whole process of going inward and doing all of that things. Like I couldn't really interact really much with people because I was causing triggers and all sorts.
Yeah, causing triggers. Now that, wow, yeah, I've had that lesson a lot, and I'm still working on it. I think if we can be comfortable, this is like what I'm probably going to share now is more for me to remind myself, because this is a good lesson that I know I needed to get, and I got this from also from a plant medicine experience, ayahuasca specifically. And it was like I was towards the end, I was dancing, and I realized that there was someone sitting there, and they were like, in their bubble, kind of, and I felt uncomfortable to actually just let go and let loose dancing because I didn't want to make them feel uncomfortable. And I realized that, oh, why would I do that? Actually, I know from my experience when someone triggers something in me and makes me feel uncomfortable, I may not like it in the moment, but give me a few weeks later, a couple of years later, and I'll be looking back going, wow, if it wasn't for that person snapping me out of that thing and just like bringing this discomfort out of me, I wouldn't have shifted. So I'm so grateful for that moment. So you got to be comfortable to trigger people. And I don't mean just going up to people and poking them in the eye and just like triggering them just for the sheer hell of it. Just by being your authentic self and just letting it loose, not letting someone's discomfort affect your free-flowing expression of life, because even though they may be resisting it in that moment, you're actually having an impact on them. And that may shift something. And whether it's in that moment or a year down the line, where they all of a sudden find themselves dancing and expressing themselves, they may not even know where it came from, but maybe that changes their life forever. If I held that back, I don't do them a service either. I don't do myself a service. I don't do them a service. So there's a fine line, but there's something beautiful around that triggering of other people and being comfortable with that, because that's a big lesson.
No, you're so right, and I suppose it goes back to what we started the conversation with about saying, not allowing other people's energies to affect your own, and protecting yourself and being in your own energy field, and not letting other people's emotions, because you can feel it. You can feel when someone's uncomfortable around you. I mean, it's clear as day. You can see it on the face, but you can sense that. Oh, and it's not yours; it's completely other people's. But
Yeah.
yeah, going back to that point, there's no way when I'm in this ragey, frustrated energy that can I be doing energy healing. No way. No one wants that because they'll sense it. People will sense it, and when I'm in this joyful mood, I can get people high. I make people. One person said that they felt like they were on ecstasy when I did a healing. There's something to say with that you're clean your shit at first before you sort of end up putting it into others.
So it's like that's actually a really important conversation for anyone seeking another healer, another teacher, and also recognizing how much energy goes in to the work that people do to support and supporting the transformation of others. You think you just jump on a call and it's an hour done and dusted. It's like you spend each waking moment clearing and cleansing your energy all the time. Before the call, you're making sure you're aligned and clear and ready, and be an open channel of unconditional space. That takes time, it takes work, it takes effort, and not that it's a trudgery. Like it's not like it's a natural thing for a lot of people in this space, right? And it's important for me to also reach out, even though I'm in this service and I can support people in this way, in my way. It's also really powerful for me to work with others because they bring a certain mirror or a trigger or whatever it might be that I would not be able to see from this perspective. And I think it's perfectly connected in that way from the perfection of how the universe works, so that it creates contribution, so that it creates unity. Because if we, like, yes, we can, it's all here, we've got it all ourselves. But there's something beautiful about needing someone else to work with to make it more powerful. Almost because if we didn't, it'd be so easy to be a hermit. But actually, for me, it's so beautiful to be able to need this mirror to show me something that I can't see from this perspective, because maybe they can see something back here. How do you feel about that and around working with other people or working with other coaches?
Well, I think it's also, going back to going to different places around the world and picking up the energy there. It's another energy you pick up when you work with someone, and whatever energy they're channeling as well. It's another frequency. It's changing. Another, your frequency, their frequency is changing, and you're gonna. There's a connection that's formed. There's a chord that is created, and cutting cords is another thing. I won't talk about that. So, but there's when you're interacting, there's your eye contact. Like the eyes are the seat of the soul. You're seeing into each other's soul. There's a connection. Um, yeah, there's a frequency exchange. It's. I mean, I work. You have to, because you're completely blind. You need that mirror. Otherwise, you can just go in blind. You can do as much. You could do as much work on your own, and you're so fine on your own and good and happy. And I mean, I'm a little bit of a hermit sometimes, and I'm good. Everything's good. And then I think they say, you only know if you're spiritual if you can spend 2 weeks at home with your parents and not want to kill them. Because it's going into each other's space. There's triggers. There's another energy frequency being generated, and I'm not going to say, oh, I'm a higher frequency than you, but you're on a different wavelength. And if you spent time away and you come back, you're on an even more different wavelength because you've had all these experiences of change, altered not your wavelength but your frequency. So then you come back and there's this adjustment period, and I'm saying this from experience because I've just come back to the UK. So again, I've just been in Bali, different frequency, coming back to the UK. Sorry, this wasn't even your question, but yeah, working with other people. Although I never used to be, but I'm extremely particular now with who I work with. Extremely, I'm massages. Your hands and got energetic portals. Like I can't go to someone that's been doing 10 massages all day and doesn't know about the energetics of it. Breathwork facilitators. Not that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm scared of the world, but to me it just makes logical sense. So I still go to see Magic Hands every now and again, even though I don't need to, because he tunes me up. He rebalances certain meridians in me, and that certain blockages, and I get that sorted. As for I use other people as coaches in the sense of as mirrors, and I'm completely present when I talk to people, and I just, okay, what's this telling me? What's this conversation mean? I look at experiences in my life and the synchronicities and see how that's a development. So you can't just put yourself in a bubble. There's all these so many tools around. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go spend fortunes on a therapist, but you can find your own therapies.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's kind of cool when you have your own tools. You can even have somebody that you trust that holds, because some people, they're not even in the space of like needing to be a service, but they could just be this thing and they don't even know it. Like you're just like a natural space holder, for using that terminology, which is sometimes used in kind of the not wrong, but like it just seems to be a bit misunderstood. Everyone's throwing around holding space here, holding space here. I'm just holding space. It's like, are you holding space or controlling the space? Are you holding space or putting your energy into something? So there's a holding space is being able to stay in it without this without this judgment, and allow the stuff to be flowing in and out without you being pulled around with it as well. Because if you're getting pulled around with it, that's triggering stuff in you. That means that there's stuff that needs to be cleared in you, and that's fine. Like we're always work in progress, that stuff. And this, to me, it's a practice like Kung Fu, this space holding thing. It's another 80 years and I'll still be learning about this holding the space. So there's no like you have it or you don't. It's a constant practice. And there's a beautiful word actually, and I learned this through my trainings with Psyche. And this is one of the things that really like made me love it so much, and the integrity and the beauty of the values around this work. And it's this word called Asumatak, and it's from North Canadian Inuktitut language. And Asumatak means the keeper of the sacred space where wisdom is revealed. And I got the same chills as I had when I first read that on the board. Asumatak, okay, when she shared that and then wrote underneath what it meant. This is an old sort of shamanic kind of word. Now it means like chief, leader, master, teacher. And it's like, that makes a lot of sense. Because the best teachers, who are the best teachers and leaders, are the ones that actually just sit back and let things happen.
Do you know an assume attack I've been using recently is ChatGPT. So if I've got
I love that.
um, so if I've got mulling on an issue, I get it to give me journal prompts, and I don't give it full answers because I don't want to give like my life away to a computer program,
Mhm.
but I give it enough that I can get that I'm willing to share, that it can give me more questions and help me delve deeper. And it is an amazing tool to be using for journaling. I mean, sometimes I use it for tarot as well. I'll pull out tarot cards, ask the question, and put the tarot cards in, and it comes out of a really amazing reading. And actually better than what I could do on my own. I'm like, okay, really
Oh,
amazing. Yeah. So there's, I mean, AI is coming. We
I
can't
love
stop that or judge it or anything. But why not use it for your own spiritual practices, which is an utterly bizarre way of using it, but
Well, it's beautiful. And if you think about it as like a child, we are the ones in power now of programming this AI. So, how are we going to program this? Are we going to program it with inspiration, love, things that are great and high vibrational, like just messages and the way we speak to it as well? It's going to make a difference. Some people would just be like, "That's bullshit," but I really believe that. I really feel that we're training a child here. There's no denying AI is powerful, and there's a lot of people saying there's that singularity moment where it switches on, and all of a sudden AI becomes the same level as we are, sort of thing. Now that you mentioned that, for anyone listening, how would you specifically do that in a ChatGPT prompt, for example? Like, so I say, I'm feeling this way today. Can you help me with a journaling prompt? Or how
yeah,
does that?
help me to overcome this, or can you give some journaling prompt? Like one example, purpose. So you could go in, okay, can you give me questions about discovering what my passions are? So it'll give you stuff like, what would you do if you had the obvious ones, like what would you do if money wasn't an issue? How would you spend your time? And then it'll go, you can ask the 10 questions, 20 questions, and then you could go journal it, and then there might be something that, oh, I haven't got an answer for this, and you go, okay, this question. Can you help? Can you give me some more questions?
Yeah.
And there's the element of holding space. It's not giving you the answers, but it's helping. It's creating a space where you can answer your own questions, which is kind of what happens in therapy anyway. The psychologist or the therapist doesn't really do
So good.
anything.
It's so good. I never thought of ChatGPT being an assume attack before, but let's I love that. That's so cool. Whilst we're on the AI, yeah, it's like there's a beauty in the AI and how I believe it's just enhancing consciousness because as it takes away the menial work. That's a threat to threat in the immediate moment for some people and some cultures. But when you look at it from the grand scale of things, if we remove our menial tasks because we need them to just make a living, get this job done and stuff like this, then actually we're kind of forced into creativity because now we've actually got the free time. We're not putting all of our energy and effort into these things that were just there to just make things work. Great, now that's done. It forces us to be more creative. And so I know that there's always going to be like a balance between AI, and it's not just like, oh, 100% safe. I'm not talking Pollyanna here, but I do see the beautiful positivity in the raising of consciousness through AI. I think that's a wonderful thing. I mean, creativity of art right now, the things that people are doing, they would never have done that if it wasn't for AI coming in, because painters and artists are like, okay, well, Midjourney can do this for me now. What else can I do? So they're like making these crazy videos of them painting upside down, doing this thing like on a beach, and then the waves come and wash it away. And like, it's whatever. It's so creative, and I feel that it's pushing this, showing how infinite our creativity is. And I can't even imagine what it's going to be in 10 years' time. You'd be like, ah, really?
I just think 10 years ago, the phones that you had, I think I remember in 2012 going to an internet cafe to get some exam results at a festival. Like it's what it's amazing that you only do even 10 years. It's a lifetime at the rate that the technology is increasing, and maybe we
Yeah.
will have got the singularity by then.
Yeah. I mean, that 10 years now relative to this time, it's going to be what? That 10 years is going to be probably 6 months, to be fair.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
that sounds far-fetched, but it's really not when you look at the data. So because it just exponentially gets faster, So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm really curious. I have one big curiosity, and this is the same. I can't remember if I asked Brent it or not around the hand lines. Similar to the Astro Cartography, if you change, do the lines ever change, for example? Are they
So,
completely set there? Or
so
if you go for a big transformation, you understand what I'm saying?
yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yes and no. So you think your soul's blue, like say your astrology is your soul's blueprint, but that comes in with all the karma that you have had from previous lives and the lessons that you need in this life. So I don't actually know if the lines will change, but I do know that there's the karmic in astrology. There's like a karmic change that happens in your energy frequency because you think the. Let me go back with that. So this is how I would think of astrology and how I started to realize that, okay, the planets have a massive influence on us. So the moon obviously affects the tides. I used to work in insurance. There's statistically more car accidents on a full moon. Equally, there's more people being locked up in lunatic asylums. That's why it's called lunatic lunar. So it's obviously not far fetched that all the other planets have an influence on us. Obviously, the sun has a massive influence on us. Just look at day and night, huge. So when we were born, those planets were having a specific influence on us as we were entering the world, and that is our blueprint, our karmic blueprint. That's our frequency, and our frequency is set by the planets. And you can think of the planets as musical tones. They've all got specific colors, another frequency. They've all got specific sounds. So they almost create this frequency that's you. That's your sound. That's your wave, your wavelength. And I don't think that you can change your wavelength up and down, but you can't change its depth and its width. It's just a wavelength. If you think of a sine and cos wave, I mean, you can make it go higher and lower on the scale, but the shape will still always be the same.
Okay. So it's
So you can,
like when I'm in Costa Rica and it's the transformation space, really. But it depends on where my level of consciousness or what resistances I have. It's always going to be this transformational space, just to keep it simple in those terms. But say, for example, once I've gone through such a big shift and all the discomfort, maybe I've become more masterful in the way I balance myself. And there's still transformation, but maybe that transformation comes in many different ways and much more flowing. And then maybe it comes back in a different way, because it could be relationship, and then it could be business, and then it could be money, then it could be family, or whatever it might be. And they may come in different ways, shapes, or form. And I guess that's based on my transformation. But generally speaking, the lines going through the Central America part is always going to be a space of transformation.
If you think that we're into infinite beings, the lessons are never ever going to stop, ever. Sorry, we're cyclical. Like the one, it's one of the laws of the universe. Like change is constant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only thing that's constant is change. So
Yeah.
we're always in that washing machine, whether it's in the barley washing machine where it's like spin dry, or whether it's somewhere that might be a bit slower and a bit more relaxed. I do believe that the time seems to be going quicker at the moment. I do believe that everything's speeding up and we're just getting slapped around the face. You were saying the intensity of your past few years. We're all getting slapped around the face.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I went back to Bali, it may still be transformational, it may have a thing, but it's not going to be the same. That's the important distinction to make as well with transformation. Some people say, oh, nothing's changed, because they're still having struggles in a certain area. And I love to just remind people, just look back. Not has it changed, because people would just go straight into no, yes or no answer, but how has it changed? As soon as they think of how has it changed, they realize, oh, actually, everything is completely different. I'm just going through another challenge, and it just feels intense, still feels intense. But I would not be able to go through this challenge right now 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of all these lessons along the way that I'm actually able to go through this challenge that I'm going through right now, because that would have been way too intense for me.
If you think it's just a muscle, like training at the gym, you can't go in and start squatting 100 kilograms. You need to build up to it. Likewise in the lessons that you get
Yes.
in this life. When
Yes.
you're a kid, the worst thing that could happen to you is you fall over and hurt your knee. Now, or like the kid at school don't ignore you. Now, sometimes it's quite nice to be ignored by people. I was just thinking also energetically as well. Like obviously you've got the planetary forces, but then you've also got what we're doing to the Earth. The Earth itself, that's going through an energetic. The Earth itself is affected by the sun and all the other planets. And then you've got whatever universal forces are going on. You've also got what we're doing to the Earth. Certain places where where there was mass killings in World War II around Europe, that energy has been completely changed. Or when they've taken down buildings have been knocked down, or whether war's obviously a big one, or mass graves, or temples, it's changing the frequency. So, or even something that's happening like Bali, for example, the earth there is not happy because they're building all these mega. It's the building and construction that's going on in that place is ridiculous. It's so busy. There's this constant vibration of mopeds that I didn't notice the last time I was there, and the construction is just constant banging. So that's messing with the frequency there, and it messes with your frequency too. And it's not necessarily because there's a Saturn line going through here. No, it's what's going on energetically in that place, and I feel the earth there is sad, and the people are sad as well.
What a crazy kind of thought, really, when you think about it, because it's like one of the most upcoming in the last 10 years, 15 years, or whatever, like increasingly spiritual hubs, right? So everyone is like the fad. Everyone's just like, oh, get a little bit spiritual, let's go to Bali. There's all the stuff going on there. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. I went, it's great, amazing. But it's so funny. There's a couple of aspects to this. Is one, we adding to the problem. On the other side, by doing the work, we also supporting the frequency. So there's kind of two sides to it. Would they be building if it wasn't for more and more people coming there? But at the same time, as the people do the work, that's also probably benefiting and supporting the frequency and the earth there, especially the people that really honor the earth properly and not just going just for the sheer hell of this new age kind of spiritual ego kind of thing. But the people that really, because I know a lot of people here in this community, that it's been very inspiring for me in this last year to really experience people that really honor the earth and all the elements and all these different aspects with all their being and all their heart, to the point where it was almost intimidating for me to start with, because I felt like such a baby in that space. But then watching everyone take such reverence to Mother Earth and all this, that's beautiful. So when people are doing that in Bali, that's going to help. But just going there, it's also causing the buildings to be built because we're increasing the population. So it's a strange place to kind of try and figure out like what's going on there, you know.
But I mean, you could say that all around the world. You know, every place is a sort of a failure of your own success.
Yeah. So I think the lesson is for all these people that resonate with this kind of message is, yeah, just keep doing that work, because that's enough, and that's what's actually benefiting the balance, regardless of what's.
But this goes back to another thing I would say. I mean, I've travelled around the world and I always end up in the little spiritual hubs. You know, it's safe. You're going to get a nice smoothie bowl if you don't want to really want to eat the local stuff. That you've got, you've got this sort of like-minded individuals. But equally, it's not reality sometimes. You're going into these places, Tulum, Bali. I know, like now Portugal's become one of these like little hubs, and you're completely stepping out from reality and almost. I don't know. It's like going in. Is that used to? Is that used to humanity? Like sometimes the language that gets used in this new spirituality circles, it's off-putting to help the layman. And I'm going to say the high frequency, but actually you need to be able to raise the frequency of everyone and bring them with you and be able to associate and talk with on a one-to-one. But it can be quite off-putting.
I'd love to just ask you a couple of questions straight off the bat. First thing that comes to your mind, what would you love to experience in life?
I want to experience passion, not in the love sense, but just passion for food. Do you know? Okay, this woman in Bali taught me something. I sat in a restaurant, and this tiny Russian woman. I've never seen someone eat so much food. I spoke to her and I just went, "This is amazing! Like, what? Tell me about this." And she was there drinking. She was on her own and she was loving it. And she just said to me, I do this once every 4 days and I eat with all my being. I mean, it's the kind of fundamental teachings of Tantra. I eat with all my being. I sit here. I don't even come with my partner. I sit here alone and eat this food. And then I go home, and then for 4 days I don't eat and I work and I write and I get in my creative space. So I don't need to worry about food. And then I go so deep into that. And that is what I want to experience. I want to experience life to its absolute fullest with passion. My passion, again, looks very different to someone else's passion, what I'm passionate about, what I want to learn. And I suppose that's aligning with my energetic blueprint.
Wow, beautiful answer. I love that. How do you want to grow from here on out?
From here on out, my main thing I want to grow is to listen to my body's intuition and listen, basically get out of my way, listen to whatever intuition, where does intuition come from? But listening to using my body as a signal amplifier. That includes spiritual practices, my emotional state, my physical body. Making sure my vessel is clear, and being sort of the most clearest that I can be. That's how I want to grow.
Beautiful. And how do you want to contribute to the world?
Activate and transform.
Yeah, love it.
I'm definitely an activator. That's my gifts.
Yeah, I can feel that just by talking to you. I can feel that activation, and brilliant. That's a beautiful contribution. How can people find you?
Instagram is the main channel. I mean, I didn't have social media until 2 years ago. I managed to. I think I got Facebook when it first came out when I was 16. Got FOMO, realised it's really not healthy for a 16-year-old brain, and got rid of it. So yeah, Instagram is the one. I also have a website as well. So my Instagram is at Asha Alchemy, and my website is ashaalchemy.com.
Ah, perfect.
Nice and easy.
So anyone check out the Astro Cartography, and you do so much more. What else do you do?
The other main thing is the energy stuff. So teaching energetics and one-to-one energy healings. I can do that online as well. So the energetics teaching, it's kind of for people that are already doing healing work or facilitators. My kind of passion is actually getting people to understand the energetics around doing energy clearings or even just doing breath work and what gets released. That's a big pet passion at the moment.